Welcome to the Sandy and Toddcast, a podcast about all things strange, unusual, and a little bit odd. Why? Because that's how we roll. What are we talking about this time? Check it out. Toddcast, hello, hello.
Sandy, hello, hello.
Episode 9. We are continuing our scary movies from last week because we talk a lot, and so we didn't get everything done that we planned on getting done.
Let's stop for a moment. Let's just stop for a moment. We don't talk a lot. You talk a lot.
Not true.
Yes, it is. I tell you what, we're going to get one of those little bell things that they use in chess, like when they're playing and then when they make their move and then they bing. We're going to get a little timer. And then when you talk, it runs your side. And then when you're done, you hit the button. And then when I talk, and then I hit the button. And then we'll see who talks the most.
You're such a jerk. You know, and if we weren't doing Mexican radio songs during the podcast, too, which, by the way...
Listen, that you didn't even know what Mexican radio was. And then last night I get a video via chat. And it's you watching the video on TV. How does somebody not know... I'm on a Mexican radio. How do you not know that song?
I can't stop laughing because I'm watching you do that and you sing it. And you get so into it, like you're bopping around. And
it's part of the presentation. If you're going to present something, you got to go all the way.
I'm on a Mexican radio. I'm on a Mexican radio.
So once again, a big shout out and thank you to everybody who listens to us. We are growing. I'm so excited about that. I'm like a little kid. I check our hosting site constantly to see how we're doing. And we are really growing. So thank you to everybody who's listening and joining in on our fun. And don't forget.
So are you being honest or are you just making shit up?
No.
Because I don't know. I don't know how we're doing.
Because you never check. And I send you stuff and then you just don't answer me.
I'm a busy individual.
Oh, Lord.
I can't always get back to people.
As if I'm not busy, right? As if I'm not busy. But I'm excited. So, yeah, so we're growing and we're doing well. And I'm very proud of us. And it's a lot of fun. So, exciting. We have listeners in Belgium, India. We have listeners in the United States, of course, and in Germany. So it's pretty exciting.
Do we have to start doing the podcast in other languages, though, or what?
I know some French, and I took 1 semester of Russian in college, but I don't think that's going to get us far, because all I can say is, hello, my name is.
Try that for me, please.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Cassandra.
I forgot that your name was Cassandra.
Yeah,
Can I start calling you Sandra? Because
no.
if you're Claire Huxtable, can I call you Sandra then? Because remember she was on the Huxtables.
No, you know the story behind that? Because a lot of people will say to me, how do you get Sandy out of Cassandra? But my grandfather did not like Cassie, because that's the normal nickname, I would say, for Cassandra. You know, people who are named Cassandra, and it's Cassandra, who would, they would call the person Cassie. And my grandfather did not like that. So my mother said, okay, we'll call her Sandy, because Sandra and then Sandy, which I like much better than Cassie. I don't know that I would have ever really enjoyed Cassie. So that's the story of my name. And I was named after, my mother was pregnant with me, and she was laying in bed watching a really bad old horror movie. And the chick's name was Cassandra. And she said, okay, we're going to name her Cassandra. If it's a girl, because back then they didn't know. And she said, if it's a girl, we're going to name her Cassandra. And that's how I came to be.
And time.
I hate you.
I'll tell you about the story of my name really quickly. A friend of the family wanted me to be named Felix. In fact, so much so that she had baby spoons and forks and all that kind of stuff with Felix on it.
Oh my
and my
God.
mom said, absolutely not. So I was named after Michael Todd, who had just married, what's the very popular actress? She's dead now. Elizabeth Taylor married a gentleman by the name of Michael Todd. And so my mother named me Todd Michael.
Oh, I like that.
Time.
I hate you, though.
I told my story in 10 seconds. And back to you now.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Sandy and Toddcast, there's more where that came from. Follow Sandy and Todd on Facebook. Just look for the Sandy and Toddcast, or you can subscribe to their YouTube channel and check out the video version each week there. Find these guys on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Soon you'll be able to support the Sandy and Toddcast on Patreon and be able to follow them on Instagram. As always, thanks for joining in the fun, and stay weird.
I'm going to start calling you Felix. All I can think of is Felix the cat.
I loved Felix the cat growing up. It was my favorite cartoon.
I know, me too.
But of course, there's Felix Unger from The Odd Couple. That was a character on there.
Are you
too,
like Felix Unger, or are you more like, no?
It was Felix, and who was the other guy? I don't remember.
Well, Jack Klugman, it was Oscar Madison.
Oscar, that's right. I'm probably a little bit of both. I'm probably like a mix between Felix and Oscar. There's a part of me that's very anal retentive about certain things, and then there's the other side of me that, doesn't care about other things.
I'm the same way. Like, my house is not from, Home and Gardens. It certainly isn't, especially with pets in the house. How can it ever be that way? But Better Homes and Gardens. But there are certain things like I cannot, this is so weird, I cannot sit on the couch and look at a piece of paper on the floor and just leave it there. Or if there's a pen on the floor, I cannot just leave a pen on the floor. It has to be where it belongs, or I freak out. But yet, it's okay if I don't do dishes for a couple days.
Oh, see, I can't do that. I can leave them overnight if necessary, but they've got to be clean.
I'm weird.
And my mom was over the top about clean. Like, literally, if you washed your hands in the sink and you left water spots on the spout, there would be a weekend of hell because of that. Like, she would lose her shit.
Isn't it weird how different people can be? There are some people who are the extremes, who are, sort of like the classic Felix and Oscar extremes. And then most people I'd say are probably middle of the road.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in animal rescue, so my peeps in animal rescue and we get each other because we know that it's impossible to keep up on everything when you have pets in the house, and it's not easy.
So let me ask you this, though. Do you have... There's never a situation where there's dried puke laying around.
No,
or anything like that, right?
It's never like
Those are the homes. I mean, and I understand sometimes a cat will go under a bed or under a piece of furniture, and you don't know that they hawked up some sort of, hairball or something, and then you move it later on, and there's like 50 dried hairballs.
It's
I get
never,
that. I understand
never like that. We lost our Homer back in August, and he was the hairball cat. He was 14, and he would come up with hairballs. I don't even know where they came from. He was horrible. The other cats, the cats that we have right now are not hairball cats, I'm happy to say. We were just talking about this last night, that we had our basement last year. Actually, a year ago this month, we had our basement completely stripped because we found mold in our basement. The sump pump years ago, without us realizing it because it was put in incorrectly, stopped working. And so we were getting a lot of moisture in our basement. I know this is exciting, but the moral of the story is we had to have it completely cleaned out. It was thousands of dollars. It was a 2-3 week process, but we got it done. But the good news about that is that we haven't had any field mice in our house that we know of, that we've seen since last February, because they have no place to go anymore. They have no place to hide down in the basement, and the cats aren't finding them because there don't seem to be any down there. We used to find all kinds of signs of we have no field mice that we have seen. We know that there are some. We know that there are some, but the main amount, like, we would get mice all the time. And I freak out with mice because I don't want to kill them, but by the same token, they make me scream bloody murder when I see them. And our cats would get them all the time and bring them upstairs, and it was crazy. We haven't seen that in like a year, which is wild. I can hear them in our walls upstairs.
No, I don't want to hear that.
I can hear them.
That creeps me out. No, I don't want to hear that stuff.
Well, you should hear. I told you that before, that I'll be sitting here in the studio, and I have Beats headphones that are super sensitive, and I can hear them in the walls.
No, see, I don't want to hear that stuff because that's
Good,
just
I'm going
not
to tell
right.
you about it more because I know it creeps you out.
Because that's what you do. Okay, so where are we? What do we got going on this week, Sally?
This week we've got our usual weird news, which should be really fun. And then we're going to finish our discussion about movies that scared us. Scared, as I put in our show notes, that scared the bejesus out of us, because I love that word.
What does that mean, by the way? Is it derived from Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth, or not?
I think it's in the Bible. No, I'm just kidding. It's not really in the Bible.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't remember. And I'm not a big Bible reader by any means, but I didn't think it was in there.
Mark 12:48.
And Jesus said, "Come to thy, for thy are the ark of the covenant of thy pestilence."
Well, that's probably not in there either.
And now, weird news.
Todd, this is a great one because obviously we are in the midst of Lent season. For those that partake in Lent, Lent is giving up something that means something to you for the entirety of Lent.
Do you celebrate Lent?
I did when I was growing up because I sort of felt like I had to. I was raised Catholic, and so, I always tried to give something up. Now I don't. It's not that I don't necessarily... I feel like I give things up all the time. I don't feel like I live that lifestyle of real gluttony. I'm sort of one of those people that it doesn't bother me to... It's not a sacrifice for me to give something up because I tend to give a lot. So it's hard to explain, but it's not a sacrifice to me. I feel like if you're going to give something up, it should be more of a sacrifice. It should teach you something where I don't have anything in my life that if I gave it up, it would teach me how to be more humble, I guess. I'm not sure, but so I don't partake in it. But this man in Ohio has decided to do something really different for Lent this year. He is giving up solid foods for the 46 days, and he's drinking beer. He's drinking beer. So he's given up solid food, and he's chosen beer. Again, how is this a sacrifice?
Now, I think I remember, I don't know if it was for Lent, but I do remember somebody doing that. It was a beer diet, and he actually did lose weight, and it was rather healthy for him because it does have some nutrients.
It was this guy. He's been doing it for a couple years now. This is his third year. His name is Del Hall, and his Lent diet includes beer, water, black coffee, and herbal tea. So that's all he has.
I'm ready to go.
For Lent. And talk about poor man giving up food so he can have beer. That's a sacrifice. But as of last week, on day 3, he was down 5.8 pounds. And like I said, this is his third year of doing it, and each year he's lost 40 to 50 pounds. That's pretty amazing. Now, the good news is that he's raising money for bars and restaurants that have been affected by COVID.
I like that.
That's very, very good. So I think he's got some sort of GoFundMe going on. People are donating to him to help that out. So I guess it seems like a dream come true for some of you men out there, Todd.
Now, first of all, it doesn't have to be men, okay? Women do drink beer as well.
They do.
And some of them more than a guy does. And second of all, I don't mind that so much, but I like food, so I would, and beer's great. I used to drink a lot of beer in my day. I can't anymore because I think I'm allergic to something in it, but I don't know.
Nerd.
I'm a nerd?
I felt like I had to say that because you said I'm allergic to beer.
Okay. I'll just sit here and let you do the show.
No,
I'm going to turn off my mic now. Going to turn off my mic now. There it goes. Getting more and more quiet. You can hardly hear me now. I now almost not even hear anymore.
He's such a jerk. Big nerd. No, I'm not a beer drinker. I like wine.
Ew, you're a nerd.
I like mixed drinks. I'm just not a beer drinker. I've never liked the taste.
What kind of mixed drinks do you have? Pina colada?
Well, being diabetic, I have to be careful. I can't have a lot of fruity stuff.
Oh,
I can't have a lot
You're
of
such a nerd.
Stuff. I know. I actually am a big nerd. But if you have, you can have straight alcohol, the ones that aren't flavored. Those are no carbs. So if I have a straight rum with a Diet Coke, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So I have stuff like that. I can have straight vodka with a Diet Coke or Pepsi.
I think rum is something that I can actually drink without having allergic reactions to it. I don't know why that is.
I love it.
But it's too sweet. It's too sweet.
I love rum. We were down, anytime we go on a cruise or we travel like Aruba or we were in Bermuda last year.
She goes again, rubbing it in.
I'm not a cruise person though. I know we're getting off topic, but I'm not a cruiser. I like cruises. I did a 10-day cruise last year. It was way too much for me. I felt like going to different locations for like 8 hours at a time was like a commercial.
You
wasn't visiting.
You would be great as a cruise director. That's the job you should go for. You could be the next Julie McCoy.
Yeah, I don't know. I was on the Love Boat in 2012. We went to Aruba and Curacao, and we went on the Love Boat. We went on Princess. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Time.
All right, next story. Lights in the California sky. Did you hear about this one?
I did, yes.
This was great because a lot of people automatically assume that any lights in the sky are UFOs, and not the case. Last week, social media went crazy when people in the Bay Area of California saw a bunch of strange lights in the sky just before dawn. People were taking pictures, posting them all over social media. Theories ranging from UFOs to weird paranormal phenomena were all stated. And alas, the lights were actually 60 Starlink satellites launched into the atmosphere by the SpaceX Starlink rocket just 2 days earlier. So it does kind of make you think, how many things that we see that are documented are actually something that can't be explained.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, even the Starlink satellites were unidentified flying objects at one point.
Yeah, it's
to
a technical
a bunch of
term.
people. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
It's a technical term. Anything can be a UFO. If I see a star in the sky and I don't know what star it is, technically, I guess it's a UFO.
And for conspiracy theorists, you could also say, well, they're telling us it's satellites, but how do we know for sure?
True. Very true. Very true. What's your take on UFOs? What's your take on spaceships and aliens?
Are we kidding? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. If we think we're the only thing out there, we talk about ghosts a lot. I don't do a lot of research on aliens and UFOs and stuff like that because it doesn't trip my trigger.
It's sort of outside my realm.
A little bit, but also it freaks me out a little bit more because a ghost I can deal with because more than likely that ghost was at one time human. Not always, but usually. And now we're talking about something that's not human, but could be living, and we don't know anything about it. And now you're expecting us to expand our minds and thought processes, not just beyond what we see, hear, feel, touch, or whatever the 18 senses are. But you're asking us to think outside our world, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit. Aliens, absolutely. UFOs, absolutely. I just don't want to meet any of them.
Right,
I don't want to meet any of them.
Well, I told you I had a UFO experience when I was in my late teen years that I still to this day, 40 years later, 35 years later, I still don't understand. And
Did they take you onto the ship and probe you?
Real quick, it was summer and it was really hot. And we lived in the country, and I remember my bed was just under my window in the house. And across from our house, there was a dirt road, and then there was a big field with a hill. And I couldn't sleep. It was so hot, and it was in the 80s. We didn't have air conditioning, and I had the window open, so I just got up and I leaned on the windowsill to look out.
Get a breath of fresh air.
Get a breath of fresh air because it was hot. It was August, I think. And all of a sudden I saw 3 lights rise up from behind the hill across the road. And don't forget, we were in the country and you didn't see things like that very often. And they raised up, and the 2 on the outside, one went to the right, one went to the left. The one in the middle stayed where it was. They rose up. And then the ones on the outside came back in, and then they went back down. To this day, I have no idea what that is. What I did do, though, many, many years later, as a matter of fact, just a couple of years ago, is I did kind of a search for sightings in the area that I lived at the time out of curiosity. And someone, a couple of years after, actually reported seeing the same kind of thing. They were swimming in the pool. They were kids in their teens. They were swimming in the pool at night, and they saw the same kind of thing with the three lights and moving apart and then moving together again and then disappearing. And it was in the area that I lived. And ironically, just a few years before that, there was a crop circle sighting in my area. It was a big deal. It was all over central New York. It was in the Mohawk, New York area. You can probably Google it and still find it. It was on a farm, and it wasn't far from where I lived, maybe 10 minutes if that. And so all those pieces together really are intriguing to me. I don't know to this day what it was. It wasn't an airplane. It wasn't, there was no reason for helicopters to be coming up from behind a mountain in the country where there was no base, there was nothing going on. So I have no idea to this day. So do I believe that there is something out there? I certainly do. If we can have what we have in our lifetime here on Earth, why can't other places exist that have something like what we have, that have the conditions that would enable them to probably do even better than we do, because we're all pretty stupid here on Earth. You know, we don't know what we're doing. That's obvious. So why isn't it possible? It's like cryptids. I've never really looked into cryptids too much, but
what's that?
Cryptids are the Bigfoots. They're the Mothman. You know, the Lauren, what was his name? Lauren Coleman. He's big on cryptids. He's done a lot of books on the cryptids, and he actually has a museum in Portland, Maine. That I was up in Portland, Maine, and I didn't know at the time. If I had known, I would have gone to his museum. Why wouldn't these things exist? I was just watching a show the other day on shapeshifters. Shapeshifters fascinate me.
They do not fascinate me. They scare the fuck out of me.
It's scary, Todd. It's scary. If you read up on them, it's scary.
No, I don't want to. I want to sleep at night.
What's the ranch? Skinwalker Ranch.
What the hell are you talking about? It's like you're making shit up now.
No. Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes, I went to Ranch Skywalker, and I went to Portland, Oregon, where the cryptids were walking around, and by God, there was an alien.
I didn't go there, but there's definitely something going on this ranch. It's called Skinwalker Ranch. I read one of the books about it, and I've watched several TV shows about it, and it's fascinating.
Jeez, we gotta take stuff away from you. That's what you've got to give up for Lent. Looking into all this crap. No wonder you're messed up in the head.
No. It's fascinating to me.
She's nuts.
I love learning about things. So that's lights in the sky. I don't know. Should we believe them? Maybe not. But, you know, I'm certainly open to that. And last piece of the week is about dreaming. Now, I don't dream. I mean, I dream. Everybody dreams. But I don't usually remember my dreams unless they're really scary to me or very personal to me. You know, if I dream about going to the store, I'm probably not going to remember I'm going to the store. But we've all heard of sleepwalking too, right? They tell you that you shouldn't wake up a sleepwalker, but what about dreaming, though? You might not expect a person who's dreaming to be able to answer questions, but there's a new study out, Todd, that says that people who are dreaming can answer questions right in the middle of dreams.
Wow.
Isn't that something? When you're dreaming, you're said to be in REM sleep. That's the deepest stage of sleep. And researchers are now saying that people in REM sleep can actually understand questions and they can give answers, which is scary to me. I don't know why that throws me off, but it does. I can't even imagine having somebody ask me a question in the middle of my dream, and they find that people can do simple math. They can answer yes or no.
Shit, I can't even do simple math when I'm awake. I'm not going to do it when I'm sleeping. I can tell you that right now.
Isn't it weird? They can even tell the difference between different sensory stimuli. So one of their big goals with this is to be able to help people who have nightmares. Somehow they want to be able to help people who have nightmares, which is great because we should do an episode or a partial episode, Todd, on recurring dreams.
All right, let's just do that. Plan it right now.
Okay.
Reoccurring dreams. I've got some.
I do too.
And we can talk about that.
That would be fun. We can compare our dreams and see if they're the same kind of things. Because we're like, I joke, but we're soulmates. You know, yes, we are. We are.
We're like opposite soulmates. We're attracted like magnets are. We're different, and so
You don't even know what you're talking about.
I do too. And here's what we should do. We should get a dream expert on, and then I will be the moderator, and you can tell the dream expert your dreams, and then the dream expert can basically say how messed up you are, and then I can keep track of the points, and then the dream expert wins.
That was weird news.
When I dream, I usually dream of Genie, which is kind of, I just thought I'd throw this out there. That's how I dream.
I love that show. I watch that show all the time.
See, now I didn't, and let me ask you this. Well, here's why. Because there are teams of TV shows. I'll talk about getting off. Like, you either love the Munsters or you love the Addams Family. Which camp are you on that?
I'm Addams Family.
See, I'm more Munsters than Addams Family.
Right.
I will put up with Addams Family, but the Munsters were my groove. And then there's the Genie or Bewitched. Which team are you on?
I was a Bewitched team. If I had to choose between the two, I would say I was so excited we went to Salem. You've been to Salem, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, and I got to get my picture taken with the Bewitched statue, which was cool. And I love Salem. We should do an episode on Salem and talk about Salem. That's really cool.
Is it Salem or Salem?
Salem.
Is it salmon?
I don't know.
What is it?
No, it's not salmon.
Okay, I was just wondering. I wasn't.
Salem.
Okay.
Salem. I stayed in a very old place. It was so funny. We stayed at the Salem Inn, and there were no elevators in it. And I was really fat at the time. And we were on the 3rd floor because, of course, when we stay someplace, I have to stay in, like, the nicest room.
Of course. Poor Dave,
and it was
I say every week.
It was on the 3rd floor, and so we had to haul all of our luggage up 3 floors in the Salem Inn. But it was a beautiful hotel. Absolutely gorgeous. So we had fun. We'll do an episode on Salem. That was a lot of fun.
All right, one more quick question about Bewitched.
Okay.
Dick York or Dick Sargent as Darren, which is better?
I like Dick York.
Yes, absolutely. There's no question about it.
No, exactly. And I remember as a kid, because I was a kid, I didn't understand that they would change people up. I was like, why is he so different? And I just didn't like it.
I didn't notice the difference. I didn't notice it as a kid.
They were very similar.
Shit, their names were Dick.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we should probably get into
all right, so that's weird news. That's weird news for this week.
If you want to talk about classic TV at any point, I'm ready for you.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, I'm just saying, I could talk about classic TV all day long.
I know. That's what I grew up. Even Gidget. Did you ever watch Gidget?
Yes, my sisters loved that show.
Mm-hmm.
That girl with
yes.
What's her name? Thomas.
Marlo Thomas.
Marlo Thomas. Yep. My sister watched that, The Flying Nun, way back with Sally Fields.
Well, even when I was in college, I would come home and it was on one of the local stations. In between classes, I'd come home and I'd watch them. I'd watch it was on at like 2:00 in the afternoon. I'd watch The Flying Nun and Gidget, and those were, you know what? They don't make things like they used to. I don't even watch TV anymore.
Well, here's the problem. I mean, back then you didn't have a lot of choice, so you either watched what was given to you or you didn't watch TV. So sometimes, listen, we watched some subpar stuff growing up because we didn't have a choice. So
right,
but there became you created a love for it. You created a kindred feeling toward those shows because they're part of your childhood.
I think there was an innocence to them too. You know, looking back 50, 60 years, TV today is nothing like it was back then. We've changed so much. We've come so far, sometimes not for the better, but there was such an innocence and everything was simple. You had your beginning of the show. It was all done in about 25 minutes. You had the beginning of the show. You had the meat of the show. You had the end of the show. All of the problems in the world were solved by the end of this half-hour show. Everything that could possibly happen. And the worst thing would be that, somebody didn't get... Somebody wanted the boy or wanted the girl and didn't have them. And so by the end of the show, they had them. Or, it was just simple. And I love simple. I'm all about simple. I don't like things to be too complicated. It's just my personality.
Okay.
That's all. That's my rant. All right.
I'm just sitting here thinking you're talking about what are the lizards or whatever. What are the
skinwalkers?
Yeah, I like things that are simple, but I read books about men who walk on the, whatever.
Oh my God. We are weird. You know what? We are so weird this week. We are so weird. We're getting off on tangents.
I'm just sitting here listening to you speak going, holy shit. Okay. Where are we at on this whole thing?
I think it's your turn to. Okay, let's talk. Now we're on to finishing up our scary movies that we loved so much.
Okay, let's see. I've got one, two. I've got three left.
Okay, so you start with one. I have two.
Okay.
So you start with one.
So, growing up, I had an affinity and also a deep fright of vampires.
Mm-hmm.
My mom let us watch that shit before we went to bed. And then I would lay awake at night knowing there was a fucking coffin at the end of my bed and that one was going to pop up. I just knew it.
Right.
And even to this day, like you want to talk about, do you believe in vampires? Could they be real? People say, it's folklore, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here thinking, could be. You just don't know.
Anything's possible. Anything is possible.
So the movie Salem's Lot comes out. Now, it's one of those movies, again, Stephen King wrote the book, just like he did Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
And they produced these films, and they weren't necessarily the best. The acting wasn't always the best, And David Soul, of all people, from Starsky and Hutch, and then he had a hit tune in the 70s called Don't Give Up on Us, Baby, starred in this movie. So, at any rate, Salem's Lot was one that scared the shit out of me.
That was a scary movie.
Primarily because it was a vampire story about vampires. And because the main vampire was, at that point in time, some of the freakiest makeup I've ever seen in my life. So a visual of that vampire, still to this day, freaks me out. He was purple, kind of like a purple blue skin, very long fangs. And it was the first time I had seen them use contact lenses to kind of lighten up the cornea. Very scary. But I think the freakiest part in the movie is when the little boy in the story has a visitor at his window, and it's one of his best friends who sadly got killed the night before, 2 nights before, by the main vampire. The kids were walking home late at night, had to take, late at night walking home is not the time to take a shortcut through the woods. Don't do that. That's the wrong decision.
Top 10 things not to do at night when you're alone.
Absolutely. And so they do. And one of the kids gets, bitten by the vampire and comes back, and he's flying to the window, and they kind of have a mist out there and all that kind of stuff. And he comes to the window, kind of scratching at the glass. So here's the theme this is the scene that I'm talking about from Salem's Lot.
You're going to creep me out.
Here he comes to the window.
Open the window. Open the window, Mark.
He's scratching at the glass.
Open the window, Mark. Please. Let me in. It's okay, Mark. I'm your friend. He commands it.
So the kid's going to open the window. I mean, who wouldn't? Your friend's asking you to. And then he realizes what's going on, and he grabs a crucifix. he holds up the crucifix at the vampire.
Go away. Go away!
And then you see the boy vampire kind of floating away and the mist around him following him. Very cool.
Again,
Special effects done very amateur special effects, but they worked very well in this movie.
and again, the music. The music is
Absolutely.
so huge in these movies, especially back then when, like you said, they didn't have the greatest effects. So it was more audio driven than it was visually driven.
I mean, you think about this, and I'm going to get off track a little bit, but there's a movie that kind of scared me early on in life, and that was The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of the witch, okay? Done in 1939, this movie is done, and some of the special effects in that movie are far better than anything you see today because they did it the right way.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was just a really creepy scene.
It was a great movie. It was
Salem's
a
Lot,
very
one of
good
my
movie.
favorites. One of my favorites.
Very good movie. Okay, let's move on to one of mine. And you laugh at me when I tell you that this movie scared me. It's a newer movie. It was from 2002. And I have no explanation for why it scared me to this day. The night I watched it by myself. I was laying in bed watching it. And I didn't want to get out of bed. I did not want to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. The Ring. The Ring scares the bejesus out of me. The bejesus. And the whole premise behind The Ring is that there's a videotape that you can watch. And, well, let's play the audio clip, Todd, because this sort of explains it. Two teenagers are hanging out watching TV in a bedroom, and it sort of tells you the backstory of what the movie's about.
You can pick something, I don't care. Any idea how many electro rays are traveling through our head every second?
I got a better one. Have you heard about this videotape that kills you when you watch it?
What kind of tape?
A tape. A regular tape. People run it, I don't know. You start to play it, and it's like somebody's nightmare. Then suddenly, this woman comes on, smiling at you, right? Seeing you through the screen. And as soon as it's over, your phone rings. Someone knows you've watched it. And what they say is, you will die in 7 days. And exactly 7 days later...
Who told you that?
Somebody from Rivera.
Who told you?
What's your problem?
I've watched it.
It's a story, Katie.
No, me and Josh, we saw it last weekend.
I thought you were with your parents.
I wanted to tell you.
You were with Josh all
Some of his
weekend?
friends got this place up in the mountains. They were trying to record a football game. I guess the reception was so bad.
What are you talking about?
Listen to me. When we played the tape, the game wasn't there. It was...
What? What was it?
It was something else. We thought it was some kind of sick joke. And then the phone rang. It was a week ago. A week ago tonight.
You're just trying to scare me.
Oh my God, Katie. Are you okay?
You totally fell for it.
So that's the beginning of the movie, and they sort of throw you off because you start thinking, oh, well, it's, they're joking around about it.
Right.
But this movie, I'll tell you, the special effects in this movie were phenomenal. And this was a case of a movie where I thought that the visual and the audio just went so well together that it takes a lot to scare me. It takes a lot to scare me. We've talked about blood and guts movies. They don't scare me at all. They do nothing for me. But movies like this, they're all psychological. And you take special effects which weren't crazy special effects. It wasn't like vampires, blood-sucking monsters coming out of anywhere. But you take those two things together and you do it well enough. And it was a very, very scary movie. Really,
There's something
really well
about
done.
the films during this time. They started using this effect where you'd be seeing the action and then it would either speed up and be very close to you, or there'd be like a skip in the action where they're here and then all of a sudden, boom, they're really close, or boom, they're in another location. And it's the feel that you've blacked out for a moment, or that entity or that being quickly moved in front of your eyes and you didn't even see it happen. And 13 Ghosts is another one around that time with Tony Shalhoub that used that same kind of effect. And it is really, really creepy. Like, to me, that's the creepiest thing, when you have dreams like that, where something's off in the distance and all of a sudden, boom, it's in your face.
Yep.
And it makes you piss your pants, and then you have to get up and change your bedding and all that. That's when I don't like it
Very
anymore.
psychological. Very psychological. You can tell they put a lot of thought behind developing those sort of tricks, those sort of effects, because it is extremely psychological. And that movie just really, really scared me. One of my favorites to this day. And you know what's funny about that, Todd, is I have not watched it twice. I have only, now there's a lot of movies that scare me that I can watch many, many times. I will not watch that movie again. It just scared me.
Yeah, and it was, I think I enjoyed it. I thought it was okay. But it's just, and maybe because it's been that scenario's been used in a lot of mock things, like in cartoons, like on Family Guy, they've used that. And then wasn't it part of the Scream or the another scary movie franchise or something? So it kind of lost a little bit because of that for me. But it's
usually the trailblazers in those things. Those were, I think that's why I liked a lot of the older stuff the most, because they were really the trailblazers. When we talked about The Omen last week, you didn't see movies like that. It was 1976.
No. Yep.
1976, and that movie was so frightening, and that really dug down into your inner workings and took out everything that you were probably afraid of and exposed it all there with great music and effects, and and not even crazy effects, just the fact that you could hear the rope swinging when the nanny killed herself. I mean, it's that's
and it also had that little bit of religious effect to it too, because of the knives and all that kind of the ritual kind of thing. So well, I'm going to go on to one of my favorites, and I know it's a favorite of both of ours. And I was lucky to grab this one, Amityville Horror.
Yes,
very favorite movie of mine. Now, here's the thing about it: there's really like no one thing that scares me about that movie. There's really no great effects, to be honest with you. There's, the flies and stuff like that, but that's not really an effect. The walls bleed. There's some pinholes and somebody poured some syrup out of them. I mean, there were no real effects in that thing that blew me away in the original. It was the premise that this was a quote unquote true story, that there was a house in Amityville, Long Island, that was haunted, and this family dealt with these things. That's the scary part.
Right, agreed.
However, the scariest thing to me is the opening sequence and the music. There's so much going on there. From the little kids humming and saying la, 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 and shit like that.
Listen, take a scary movie and put kids or like young women just kind of humming or singing in it. It's very scary. It's creepy.
So the opening sequence with the outside of the house and the I like eyes in the attic on that house, and you're done. The guy that wrote the music to that movie is a gentleman by the name of, I believe it's Lalo Schifrin, did a ton of stuff. Like, he did the theme for Starsky and Hutch, okay? I mean, he did just a ton of stuff. He just blew that one out of the water.
Great.
Like, that was so good. So that, for that movie, when I hear that music, or even if I'm trying to act a little like scary to somebody, I'll just go, La 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 la.
It's creepy. It's very creepy. You always send me weird things, and they're very
we're going to
creepy.
get to some of that coming up in just a little bit.
So,
do you know what she did?
Oh, Lord. God help us all. But I think, too, you have to look at that movie and the true story in some ways separately. Because if you watch the movie itself without knowing too much about the movie, you can still get a good experience out of that movie. And I think that is kudos to the writer, producer, director of the movie, is that it's scary regardless of whether you know about the backstory or not.
Right.
So I think they did that really, really well. And it makes it even better when you know the backstory to it. So great movie and great choice. One of my favorites.
Your turn. I yield the floor.
All right. So my final movie, to me, it sort of paved the way for the found footage films. It was one of the first, if not the first. And it was a really interesting movie because throughout the movie, and I don't know if everybody felt this way, but throughout the movie, I didn't 100% know what was going on the whole time.
Yes.
But yet, by the same token, it scared the bejesus out of me because I didn't know what was going on through the whole movie.
Now, if I remember this properly, and this is several years ago, and I was much younger and had more brain cells at that point in my life, but it was kind of like, was this actual footage from an actual event? Is that what we were seeing? Because that's kind of the way it was played off, right?
Well, the movie is The Blair Witch Project. It was from 1999, and it was it's supposed to be found video footage. So three hikers set out with their cameras they want to do documentary footage about the Blair Witch in this town. It's a legend in the town. And I mean, this is a high-level explanation, but that's what they do. So they go off into the woods because there's supposed to be a house in the woods where a local serial killer abducted children and murdered children. And during the movie, they run into all kinds of really weird ritualistic things, and they're supposed to be documenting it. They get lost in the woods, and in the end, it sort of leaves you, it's another cliffhanger. You don't really know what's going on in the end either. And the fact that this movie started out with a $22,000 budget and made $248 million, that really says a lot for the way that this was done. And it's such a simple preface. And what they did was, and I remember reading about this, is they took the three actors, they just let them go. They gave them a general idea of what the script was, and they just let them do it. And it turned out to be fantastic. And I think part of the allure of this movie is that nobody knows what's going on completely through the whole movie. Like a lot of movies, Todd, you can sit there and go, I bet it goes in this direction, or I bet this happens. And it usually will, but not in this movie.
It was presented to not like there was no film camera, meaning there wasn't this major camera that showed the three of them together ever.
Right.
And then you saw some of them walking around with video cameras. Okay. Kind of like the ghost hunting shows. There's always a TV crew there filming them, and then each one of them has a camera.
There was no, we call it B-roll. There was no extra footage anywhere.
Right. It was just the footage
them.
From those cameras.
Right.
And I also think that there were no like real plot twists. It was just like, what is this? What are we finding here? And then there'd be like small rock piles around, or those little twig hanging things. And it was all ritualistic, and it was just crazy. And yet, I think that confusion is what really scared people. The fact that you couldn't sit there and make sense out of what was going on your own. As you go along in the movie, each step of the movie makes less sense than what you just witnessed a few minutes ago. So in this scene, one of the filmmakers, Heather, they're lost in the woods. They have no idea what's going on. I think by this point, at least one of them has disappeared. So she knows that it's near the end, and
she takes the camera and she puts it in her own face. And it's a picture that I'm sure is in everybody who's watched the movie in their minds right now of just her eyes and the top of her nose as she sort of confesses and apologizes. And the snot. Confesses and apologizes for everything that she feels she's done in this situation. And that scene was completely her. There was not written. She did that. And I have to say that these kids who did this movie were fantastic. So let's play that, Todd, because I think it's a little bit long, but it's a great scene.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. And I'm sorry to everyone. I was very naive. I am so sorry for everything that has happened. Because in spite of what Mike says now, it is my fault. Because it was my project. And I insisted. I insisted on everything. I insisted that we weren't lost. I insisted that we keep going. I insisted that we walk south. Everything had to be my way. And this is where we've ended up. And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold and hunted. I love you, Mom. And Dad. I'm so sorry. I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
I just love that. I just love that. That is very scary, especially with the confusion that's going on in your brain as you're watching this movie. And you're like, what the hell is going to happen next? So I just thought it was a great movie to pick because it really did start the found footage phenomena. And not all of them have been that good.
No, and again, it was almost touted as this was real footage that was found and blah, blah, blah. So I went into this thinking I didn't know if this was a movie, a documentary, or what exactly it was. Definitely very memorable.
Yep.
I mean, I can remember the night going to see the movie, who was with, going out to eat before, all that. I mean, I remember the whole thing. So a very memorable movie.
A lot of people, and it was made that way. A lot of people just didn't know whether it was real or not. I remember I didn't know whether it was real or not for a long time. I still would, look it up and see if it was really real because it's so convincing. I loved it. I thought it was great.
All right. So for the last movie.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'm going to start by saying that, remember I was talking about Lalo Schifrin, the guy who wrote the theme music for Amityville Horror. Mm-hmm. He was actually commissioned to write the theme music for this next movie. And the stuff he wrote was deemed too scary because the movie itself is about as freaky as they come.
Yeah.
Now, this is a movie that for me has paranormal. It has some religious tones to it, obviously. For the time, great special effects. In fact, some of the footage that didn't make the film was even better. And I'm talking specifically about the spider walk. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to YouTube and look up spider walk and you will see it. But it never made the film, but it was freaky as you know what.
Yeah, definitely.
And the story itself was freaky. And again, was one of those movies that kind of opened your mind to things that maybe you didn't know much about. What the hell is being possessed? What's that all about? And of course, I'm talking about the movie The Exorcist.
Yes.
To me, this movie has it all. It's a 70s movie, so it's got 70s decor. It's got the old phones that ring and scare the shit out of you like a cell phone can never do nowadays. There's talk about hallucinogenic drugs in it. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I could pick a million frickin' scenes. But the scene I chose was where Reagan the little girl has been possessed. And they're going to do an exorcism. And Father Karras comes to see her. He is the younger father who's been, for a long time, questioning how he feels about the religion, Catholicism, and his role in it. And he's one of the priests that will go and do this exorcism. And so he stops by to visit Reagan. And this is that scene. And it ends with one of the best scary movie situations ever. Like something happens that is like one of the best things ever. So here is a scene from The Exorcist.
Hello, Reagan. I'm a friend of your mother's. I'd like to help you.
You might loosen the straps.
I'm afraid you might hurt yourself, Reagan.
I'm not Reagan.
I see. Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karras.
Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
Show me Reagan and I'll loosen one of the straps.
Your mother's in here with us, Karras. Would you like to leave a message?
If that's true, then you must know my mother's maiden name. What is it?
And Reagan unloads the pea soup on him.
That's great. Yes.
That demon and that voice, some of the scariest ever.
Oh, without a doubt.
And when his mother's voice comes through at some point and talks to him, when she lifts off the bed and is upright in almost the crucifix position, the whitening of her eyes. The power of Christ compels you. You know, all that stuff. Every bit of it. Just, it's amazing.
It was so beyond its time. The world was not ready for it. There is a documentary on Discovery Plus right now about the actual case that this was based on. And in the beginning of the documentary, Todd, we're going to have to do an episode on the actual case because it's very interesting.
I got to watch the documentary first. Is it worth watching, or is it going to?
It's very good.
Yeah,
it's very good, and you should watch it. I think I sent you the thing in Messenger, and you're like, "What the heck is this?"
Probably.
Yeah, because you have pay attention to me sometimes, but I see the smile on your face.
I doze off sometimes when she's talking.
Yeah, whatever. But they showed footage of the release of the movie in the beginning of the documentary, and literally people were passing out during this movie.
It's freaky.
It is a very scary movie. I'm glad we saved it for last because it's fantastic. It's one of the best. One of the best.
You can see other documentaries out there about how they filmed certain things, like when she twists her neck around and all that, and it makes it look so bad. It makes it look just very childish and bad. But when you see the movie, and again, you got to think about the time period. We didn't have CGI and all that kind of stuff. There were no computer graphics here. The breath that you were seeing them breathe was not made by a computer. That was made because they were actually in freezing conditions in the studio in order to create the breath that you were seeing in the room. I mean, all that kind of stuff.
Unbelievable.
At the very end, there's a great scene at the end where Father Karras is basically fighting with Reagan, and he says, you know, he's trying to get the beast to leave her body, and says, "Take me instead," okay? And there's a part where you see him change from what he looks like into a possessed man, okay? You see the possession take over, and then him come right back out of it. No computers. It was literally done by trying to film the best they could with different makeup.
Unbelievable.
And so as he changes from the beast into himself again, right before he is thrown from the window, by the way, down that long set of stairs and killed, there is a transformation that takes place that was done literally by hand with film. It's not perfect by any means, but it's fucking amazing.
Right. When you consider the time when it was made, unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
And there is a point in the movie that I do to Sandy all the time, and I'm not going to do the whole bit because it says a naughty word. But the mom comes in, and as soon as she walks in, a lot of shit's thrown in the room. Reagan's already tied down in bed at this point. Well, she's not tied down. They hadn't tied her down yet. And she's doing something with a crucifix that is very, very naughty, and we won't talk about.
Right.
But then her head turns around, and she says to her mother in that voice, "Do you know what she did? Your blanking daughter?" Just like that.
And it creeps me out.
And that, yeah. I mean, it's such a good movie.
It really is. It really is. So we're going to do an episode on the true story of what that movie was based on, because I think that would be great to see what the comparisons were and how much they took that story and how well they made it into a movie. Not completely parallel, but really, really good.
It can never be. That's why documentaries are documentaries.
That's right.
And feature films are feature films.
That's right.
Cassandra, your mother's in here with us, Cassandra. Would you like to leave a message?
This is what I deal with on a daily basis. This is my life. Thank you so much. Thank you. So those are the movies that scared the bejesus out of us. Woo! And why. Woo!
I want to be the character of Bejesus. Can I be the character of Bejesus?
I love that word. Is there a character called Bejesus?
Yo, my name Bejesus.
Bejesus.
And I walk around and I scare people because that's what I do. That's how I make Bejesus sound right here. Oh, yeah. I wrote a song about it. Like to hear it? Here go. My name Bejesus. Okay.
All right. Sounds a little bit like Deliverance. So, all right.
Deliverance? Really? I've never seen that movie. That movie I've never seen.
There's been jokes about that movie. I saw it, I think, once years ago. All right. So, big thank you once again to all of our listeners. We really, really appreciate you. You can check out our Facebook page, The Sandy and Toddcast. We also put episodes up there every week, so you can check us out. Give us a like. The more love we get, maybe we'll start doing some fun giveaways. And you can look for us on Spotify, Amazon, Audible, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find the Sandy and Toddcast. Patreon, of course, is coming soon, so you can help us out. We're already in the works of coming up with some new ideas and special things that we can give to our Patreon supporters. And we also have an email address, thesandyandtoddcast@gmail.com. If you have any stories at all that you want to share with us, any feedback, anything you like, any suggestions for episodes, we would love to hear from you. And as always, if you like this podcast, please give us a review on the podcast platform that you use, because we would love to see that.
I would like to do a Sandy and Toddcast email players, meaning we play the parts of the people in the email. So like if we get an email from Janice from New York, you play Janice and I'll play the other parts.
Okay, let's do it. We can make little mini
Absolutely. The Sandy and Toddcast players.
We can do it with such emotion. It'll be great. So please send us email. We would love to get email. And you can message us on our Facebook page as well. I think that would be amazing. That would be so much fun. And I can't end this week's episode without thanking Dan Phillips for use of 600 Miles. He has allowed us to use. Thank you, Dan. He has allowed us to use his song 600 Miles for our intro and our outro each week. You can find Dan on Facebook, Daniel Phillips Music, or on Instagram at @D_Phillips Music. He is just amazing. So you can get more information about Dan.
Cassandra, how does your husband deal with you? Poor Dave.
How do I deal with you? How do I deal with you? That's the big question. We're going to do a whole episode on how I manage to deal with you.
It'll only be like 5 minutes long. It's easy to deal with me. I'm so lovable.
I have to smudge the entire studio when I'm done with these podcasts each week. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back with you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. How many more miles left?
in this race. How long it takes, I don't know. In the end, it ain't about the pace. It always ends the